The Snap-on Articulator is Cbite's first disposable single pour pin system. This articulator here basically is extremely simple to use, and this particular articulator labor time, excluding the stone setting time, is around 5 minutes. So you can see the dies are easy to remove, but they're also extremely stable. It uses a plastic pin. However, don't let the plastic pin fool you into thinking that it is an unstable system, because as you can see, this die here is extremely stable, and I'm pushing real hard on it, trying to wiggle it, and it's very stable. What makes it stable is the surface stabilizer here. So you can see there these pyramid structures there. They're the ones that keeps your dies very, very stable. As you can see right there. This articulator is very simple to use. It is very accurate, and it's very fast. Again, as you can see, you've got 3 pins here. On the opposing side, we have a pin here, but it's not necessary. I mean, it's there just so, it's just another technique of using it, but you really don't need to put one, but it's there just just for some people who wants to be a little more comfortable having a pin there. So anyway, the basic design of the Snap-on, as you can see here, one that has not been poured up, it's got the pyramid shaped stabilizers on top. This pin, you have to basically plan where your prep die is going to be, and just mark it up accordingly. So in this case here, as you can see, this has been marked up where the pins are going to be, and the pin, as I said, it's not used for stability. It's used basically to hold your die, and you can still vibrate the pin if you use that technique. It's just very, very simple to use. The pin, you could push from the bottom, you can pull from the top here, but it's basically there to allow you to work with the dies. This articulator here, it can be sectioned. Once you pour it up, it can be sectioned on the articulator, or if you want to remove before sectioning it, you can. And all what you need to do is tap on the tip of these pins. In other words, you tap on it evenly here, each one of them until it comes out. We recommend that you use something that has a little bit of a mass, like a jeweler's hammer, those little hammers jewelers use, or in this case here's a socket wrench extension. It has a lot of mass, so this is good to tap the pins out to allow the poured up stone to come out. So very, very simple to use. Before you begin pouring up the stone, you will need to do a little planning first. Basically, the first thing you have to decide on where the pins are going to go. It'll always, of course, depend on your impression. You have to determine where the prep die is going to be. Let's just say, if it's in this case, you will have a pin right there. It's a good idea, in the beginning at least, to mark where the pin is going to go, and also mark the impression. That way you can always line it up. The other thing to do is to make sure that, yeah, by the way, you will also need a pin on this side and a pin on this side. That way you can remove either die besides the prep die. So the other thing that you need to do also is you need to be able to line it up properly. It's important that you do that. That way it sits right in the middle. And not only do you line it up this way, but you also need to line it up horizontally. You want to make sure you try to gauge it where the midsection of the impression kind of lines up there, the middle of this clasp opening. Or in this case, you know, if you are looking at it this way from this side, you want to line it up with the ball. That way you will have a model that's evenly spread out. In other words, you don't want it to be, you know, the prep side to be too low and have the opposing side way too high. It's just not gonna look good. This way, this is fairly even, as you can see. It kind of lines up nicely there. Also, if you look at from the top view, it's fairly centered. So that's the reason why you need to prepare for that. Now the other thing too that you need to also prepare, actually before I do that, here's an example. I just want to show you what happens when you don't line things up correctly. As you can see, it's really not lined up in the center, and also as you can see, it's kind of leaning at an angle this way. So that's why it's important to do that. Now this could have also been caused by not allowing the die stone to set up a little bit more before putting it on the articulator. In other words, the stone wasn't firm enough yet to stack. When you pour the impression, obviously pouring up the impression, you want that stone to be, you know, very runny. So it'll go in through all the nooks and the crannies. It starts to fill out. Now once you've got this pretty much filled out, you might want to wait a little bit to get the stone where it's not so wet. That way you can get the stone and start to stack it on top here. It's important to do that because it needs to be a little bit firm so it doesn't just, you know, droop all over the place to the side there. And if the stone is still too runny and you place the stone on here and it's not stacking yet, it'll have a propensity to want to droop on either side. Not just droop, but it's going to sink some more, so you won't even be level here. You don't want the impression resting directly on those surface stabilizers. So that's why it's important for you to really know your stone. Now, having said this, make sure that you still have plenty of time once the stone is kind of like putty and workable. You don't want to wait too long where you don't have enough time to shape it, because you still need to shape it. You know, when the impression is on, you need to be able to put stone in areas where there's not enough stone. You need to be able to shape it, and also then remove the excess stone. This was this was passed through an arbor band. First, what happens is once you remove the impression, you're going to get a lot of bulk. But before this bulk, there's even more bulk. When that impression was there, you want to be able to shape it and really remove a lot of the excess stone. And it's important that you shape it so you get to see that the stone is sitting nicely on top of the articulator. That way you can always get your correct occlusion here. It's important for those dies to sit properly. So very important. You need to make sure you understand, you're familiar with the working properties of your stone. How soon does it start to firm up, and how much time you have to work with it. Now, here's an example here. As you could see, this stone was a little bit wet when it was poured up in the articulator. As such, the stone oozed in, and it was coming out there. Now, it's not the end of the world if it does that. It's okay. It's just that when you eject the stone, you just have to break. It'll break off anyway. When the stone comes out, all that extra stone that is in the channel here will break. And all what you basically need to do is just push it out with a spatula. It's a good tool to use. So once you've got the stone that's set in there, you can just stick a spatula in there and just push it out. It'll come right out. So it's not a problem. But one way to do that for that to not happen is to just make sure that when you're stacking the impression right on top of the articulator, is you do it when it's not too runny. Another technique to use is once you have poured this up and that you've stacked the stone to a nice layer, always put a little bit more than you need. That way you get to work with it. Better to have a little more than than not enough stone. So anyway, at this point, once you've poured the stone in here and you've stacked it up, one technique also is to place the articulator upside down this way, so gravity won't let it come out down to the bottom, to the bottom of the articulator. So it really depends on how you want to work with it, but you could do it either way. So some technicians like to do it this way. As long as the stone is still workable and it stacks and everything lines up, if you've got a pin in there, that make sure you just line everything up, and then you just start to push the articulator from the top in this manner. And then, of course, always make sure that it lines up correctly. Always look at your top view. So that's really how to use the snap-on articulator. One other thing, by the way, just it's two identical parts that you snap together. What I wanted to talk about here are these vertical. What this is, they're not. The purpose is not to create support in the back here. The purpose is really basically it's just to align the articulator, the top and the bottom, so you have a guide to make the model look nice. But it's important that when you push down, I'm gonna zoom in here a little closer. When you push down, make sure that you stop before they touch each other, because what happens is some technicians push all the way down, and then what happens is when they take the impression out, this thing will always, there's going to be a bounce because of this. This was not, they're not meant to touch. If they touch, it's, if it's pushed down, you're going to get a bounce on the model. So if that happens, it's again very, very, very simple, very easy to resolve. Just get a pair of wire snippers and then just snip this off, and also snip it on the other side. So then you won't have that bounce. You won't have these things try to push this top piece up. So that's what they're for. Also, one good thing to do is, after a while you're working in the lab, you get stone dust and everything. It's good to just lubricate the balls so they can move nicely. Just use just any standard shop lube, anything that you could just lubricate the ball. You could even use something like vegetable oil or olive oil. But a good lubricant to use would be something like sewing machine oil. So if you put that in there, you'll still get better movement there. You get a nice lateral and also protrusive movement. So, and that's it. Very, very simple to use. The Snap-on Articulator.